तत्परम्पर्यय विद्महे ज्ञानलिङ्गेश्वराय धीमहि तन्नो गुरुः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ योग महर्षि डॉक्टर स्वामी गीतानंद गिरि गुरु महाराज की जय। नमस्ते, vanakkam, swagatam, namaskaram. It's always a pleasure to start a Saturday morning with all of you who are part of my Vishwa Yoga Parivar, my beautiful worldwide yoga family. I have been looking at different topics over the past year, and we are close to celebrating the first year anniversary of our lockdown sessions. I was looking at it yesterday and realized I think the first session I had started off was the 29th of March last year. So we are just a week away from celebrating our 1 year anniversary. And as my dear Soundarajan mentioned yesterday, it's very interesting that we did the 108 days, and then now today is the 36th session of our Scintillating Saturdays. So 3 plus 6 is 9, and 108 is 9. You add it all together, you still get a 9. So a very beautiful day to be having this session. Recently, some of the students were asking questions about the process of breathing that we do in the Gitananda tradition, especially when it comes to the Vibhaga Pranayama, the sectional breathing. And this Vibhaga Pranayama, which is the base on which all the other pranayamas are built, has a certain specific pattern of breathing. And there are always questions in the minds of students. Most of the time, these questions arise because people are exposed to so many teachings these days. In ancient times, students would most probably only be exposed to a particular form of teachings in a particular tradition, a sampradaya, or a parampara. So a parampara, a sampradaya would be what a student would be exposed to, and so there was no confusion. This is how our teachers have taught us, and this is how we do it. But in modern times, with the advent especially of the internet, every Tom, Dick and Harry can post anything they want on the internet, including Dr. Ananda. So all of us are guilty as charged of posting whatever we want on the internet, whether we know about it or not. And usually, those who know keep quiet, those who don't know post a lot. So because I post a lot, you know where I fall in that. There's so much of information on the internet, but a lot more disinformation and misinformation. The other thing that has happened is the opportunities for students to study with different traditions, masters, teachers, instructors from different traditions, and hence it starts to become sort of like a bounty hunter. I have been to 7 different teachers. Do you know that? I have been to 11, so I'm better than you because I've had more teachers than you. And it's always funny when I look on the internet and I find people who attended one session of mine, in some conference. Suddenly I am added to the list of teachers. And so, they have this huge list of teachers. It's become very common these days, teacher hunting, like doctor hunting for patients, teacher hunting for students. So they keep on adding this teacher, that teacher, and then someone says, oh, pranayama is taught well there, so go to that teacher. Mudras are taught there, so go there. Kriyas are taught here. Hey, meditation is taught best in that. So, people keep on starting to get a bit from this tradition, a bit from that tradition, a bit from here, a bit from here. And what happens is the more they get these bits and pieces, the bits and pieces are taken out of context, and suddenly people get confused. Because that teacher said to do it this way and this teacher said to do it that way. This teacher said this is Chin Mudra, that teacher said it is Jnana Mudra, somebody else calls it Prakasha Mudra, whatever they want to call it. And suddenly, what to do? Well, very simple. Very simple. Be aware. Be aware of all traditions. Be open to all traditions. But please, when you follow and you practice, use one tradition. And this is my perspective on this. I am open to all the traditions. I love to know about the other traditions and know about their perspective. But when it comes to my own practice, I have chosen to follow the lineage as set up by my father, his guru, and the lineage of teachers. Not that I say only I am correct or only our tradition is correct. I would never say that. Because I respect every tradition and feel it is correct. It is correct within its context. We need to understand every tradition is correct within its own context. It has its own logic. It has its own framework. So when you are within that context, there's nothing wrong about it. But the issue is when we start to say this or that. And one of the major issues that comes up when we talk about pranayama, and pranayama is the foundation, a foundation of all the practices in this Gitananda tradition of Rishiculture, Ashtanga Yoga. Pranayama is the foundation, and in fact, in the yoga step by step, Team 52, we have really enjoyed the past 23 weeks, and tomorrow's our 24th lesson. The first part of the yoga step by step is all about pranayama, getting ready to breathe properly, because that is where life starts, with the first breath of life. So when Swamiji says where to start, he says where does life start? With the first breath. And hence, such an importance is given to the breath, learning to breathe properly in this tradition before other things are added on as multiple layers. When we talk about pranayama, we are talking about pranasya ayama, enhancing our experience of that pranic life force. You're not expanding that life force. The life force is already expanded. It is infinite. What we are doing is we are enhancing our experiential awareness of the life force through the process of pranayama. We are not expanding it. Everybody is like, I'm expanding the prana. Prana is expanded. You are contracted. Prana is infinite. You are finite. Prana is unlimited. You are limited. So the issue is, through pranayama, we are enhancing, expanding our experiential awareness of the flow of prana through us. And the best way is by utilizing the breath. So when you want the prana to be experienced fully, you need to be breathing properly. If you are not breathing at a minimum of 50 to 60% of your capacity, remember our lung capacity is about 5 liters, 5,000 milliliters. If you are not breathing at least 60% of your capacity, you are still caught in survival mode, just barely staying alive. So there is no energy or space or opportunity to enhance your awareness of prana. Because you are so busy surviving that you or making a living, you have forgotten to live. The same thing. We are so focused on making a living that we forget to live. You are so focused on surviving with the breath, you have forgotten to breathe. So that 60% is where you start to then have enough to survive. The hierarchy of needs have been taken care. Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Similarly, the hierarchy of need is you are now breathing enough that you can survive without thinking about it. Now you have space, you have an opportunity, you have something extra with which you can start to expand into a higher perspective. And this is why we need to be breathing as we are meant to. Utilizing our lungs as we are meant to. So when we talk about utilizing our lungs, yes, we have two lungs, the right and the left. So you have a right and a left lung, and these lungs have lobes, low, mid and high. So you have a complete lung. First of all, you have the respiratory system in which you have two lungs, okay? 1 and 2. Now those lungs, within them have the lobes. So these are like the sections of the lungs. You have the low, mid and upper sections. This is why the term sectional breathing comes in. Low, mid and upper parts of the lungs. And then in the low, mid and upper part of your lungs, you have subsections. The subsections are called bronchopulmonary segments. Bronchopulmonary segments. Broncho in this context is an air supply. Pulmonary in this context is a blood supply, and it is a segment. So these are 10 segments in each lung, 10 and 10, which have their own airway supply, their own blood supply, their own lymphatics, their own neuronal connections. And so they are like the small districts. So the bronchopulmonary segments are like the districts. The lobe is like the state, and the entire lung is like the country. So the country divided into states, divided into districts. The lung divided into lobes, divided into bronchopulmonary segments. And when you start to become aware and mindful of these bronchopulmonary segments, it gets the name Vibhaga Pranayama. V is a superlative, Bhaga means a section. So if you are just breathing into the different sections, low, mid and high, it is Bhaga Pranayama, sectional breathing. But we want to go into the micro unit, Vibhaga Pranayama, where we are mindfully enhancing our awareness of prana as we focus the breath into the low, mid and upper parts of the lungs and into the front, side and back of each of these. Front low, side low, back low. Front mid, side mid, back mid. Front upper, side upper, back upper. So we have 9 areas that we are focusing in each lung. This concept is thousands of years old, and this is a concept that is in tune with the bronchopulmonary segments, which are something that are only in the last 4 decades made accessible even in modern science. 50 years ago, we only knew of the sections, not of the subsections. It is only in the last 40-50 years that this has got fine-tuned. So 10 and 9 is very, very similar and very, very close. So when we are doing the Vibhaga, we are focusing the mind, because the mind is our tool. The power of choice is the superpower of being human. So we are choosing where we want to focus our mind. Yato mana, where the mind is being focused, tata prana, there the prana will flow. There the awareness of the prana will grow. Where the mind is focused, the prana will flow, and the awareness of this wonderful universal energy will grow. The experiential awareness and mindfulness is growing through this practice. Normally when we breathe, it is the brain stem. We don't even think about it. But here we are shifting from the brain stem to the prefrontal cortex. We are choosing. I want to focus on the lower part of my lungs. I want to focus on the middle part. I want to focus on the upper part. And hence what we are doing is we are choosing where we are going to focus, and hence the energy movement in that area will become more possible for us to experience. Now when we are working on this, there's always a lot of terminology issues, because people say, oh, you breathe in low, mid, high, you breathe out high, mid, low. Somebody else says you breathe in high, mid, low, you breathe out low, mid, high. And then Swamiji teaches us breathe in low, mid, high, breathe out low, mid, high. And people get very confused. In fact, I remember an article on the net many years ago. I think it was somebody in Ireland who wrote it. And this person said there's so much of confusion because Swami Gitananda says low, mid, high, low, mid, high. So-and-so says low, mid, high, high, mid, low. And another person from that same teacher, that same tradition which split into two components, says high, mid, low, low, mid, high. And he said, so what do we decide? He said, well, 2 out of 3 of the authorities say low, mid, high is how you breathe in. And 2 out of 3 of these authorities say low, mid, high is how you breathe out. Hence, low, mid, high is correct. Imagine how logic works in that. Lot of confusion. Even 2 traditions that have come out of the same source teach the opposite way of breathing. And people say, what do we do? And then you have people who have some scientific knowledge and say, air will just go wherever it wants. What are you talking about? Yes, we are not talking about the air at all. We are talking about the experience of prana. And everybody is caught up with, is prana oxygen or nitrogen or carbon dioxide? No. It is the catalyst that holds it all together. So we are wanting to enhance the prana awareness. We don't want to just look at where air flows. People want to radio tag, the air and see where does it go. The pipe comes from top down, the pipe, everything has to come through that pipe and go through that same pipe. Okay, so it is not that. Where is the awareness? And in order to understand this, we need to understand the mechanics of respiration. The mechanics of respiration are based on the diaphragm. It is all a muscular action. The diaphragm, the huge muscle that divides the thoracic and the abdominal cavities, a dome-shaped muscle. Okay, a dome-shaped muscle that has origin on all sides and insertion into itself. If you look at the diaphragm from down in the abdominopelvic cavity, it looks like the beautiful domes in all the cathedrals you find in Europe and all the religious buildings you find all over the world. Very beautiful when you look at it. Now this diaphragm, when it contracts, goes down, and when it relaxes, comes up. So this movement of the diaphragm going down and the movement of the diaphragm coming up. Contraction of the diaphragm, relaxation of the diaphragm. This is the most important aspect of all of our respiration. The diaphragm is supplied by a nerve called phrenic nerve. And if the phrenic nerve gets cut, you have diaphragmatic paralysis, and after that you have to survive on a ventilator. Because when the diaphragm goes out of the equation, you will not be able to breathe enough to even survive. You need a ventilator to survive. That is the importance of the diaphragm. The diaphragm, listen to me, the diaphragm is the most important muscle of respiration. So it doesn't matter whether you are breathing in or whether you are breathing out. Everything is based on the diaphragm. So the diaphragm going down, inhalation, the diaphragm coming up, exhalation. Now this is governed by your brainstem. So the brainstem is sending a signal. When the signal from the brainstem comes, the respiratory center, in yoga we call it aprakasha bindu. When that comes, the diaphragm starts to contract downwards. Now along with that contraction of the diaphragm downwards, the intercostal muscles. These are muscles that run down between your ribs. So you have the ribs and you have the intercostal muscles running between the costa. The costa are the ribs. Okay, so the costa, intercostal muscles, and there is a set internal and external. One helps in inspiration, one helps in expiration. So these muscles, now the diaphragm has gone down, the intercostal muscles start to contract and hence the chest is opened up. So this is vertically, this is horizontally. So the first most important one, let's put it that way, is the diaphragm going down. The diaphragm going down is the vertical change. The intercostals contracting and the rib cage expanding is the horizontal change. So vertical change, horizontal change is there. And then you have the accessory muscles, sternocleidomastoid and other. And these start to pull upwards. So you have the downwards, the sidewards, and the upwards. This is the most important aspect that is happening. The diaphragm goes down, the intercostals go out, and your accessory pulls up. And because of the muscular action, please remember, because of the muscles moving, what has happened is the whole thoracic cavity has expanded in volume. The volume of the thoracic cavity has become more. Because of this, by Boyle's law, physics, Boyle's law, when volume is increased, the pressure falls. Volume and pressure are inversely proportionate to each other. So when the volume is expanded, why? Diaphragm has gone down, rib cage has expanded, accessory muscles are pulled up. So from this, it has gone like this. This has become this. Okay. Now the volume has increased, pressure falls. So the pressure inside your thoracic cavity is now negative with relation to the external atmospheric pressure. 760. Yeah, okay. Millimeters of mercury. The external atmospheric pressure is there. The internal pressure within your thorax has become negative compared to that. Compared to that 760, this is now a couple of units lesser. So people say negative intrathoracic pressure. It doesn't mean negative meaning 0 and below. What it means is compared to the external. So the pressure inside your thoracic cavity is negative in relation to the pressure outside, and hence to balance the pressure, air rushes in. So see, the process of breathing in is totally a muscular one. 760 millimeters externally, relative to that internally. The reason I have 720 is, the 72,000 nadis, and also it would be wonderful it had been 720. It would go in tune with that. 760 is sort of out of tune with that concept. Let's get back here. So what is happening is that the change of the muscles contracting downward, sideward, upward, expand the thoracic cavity, the volume expands, volume goes up, pressure falls, the pressure is relatively negative compared to the external atmospheric pressure, so air rushes in to balance this pressure change. And we say, oh, I'm going to breathe in. Actually, what you are doing is, you have trained yourself, you have got used to it, so the muscle movement occurs, the air comes in. The air comes in as a result of the muscular changes causing pressure volume changes, and the air is only coming in to balance all of that. Now, there is a point where everything has got balanced. The brainstem says, okay, fine. Till now, the brainstem was saying, breathe in, breathe in, breathe in, breathe in. So your muscles were doing all of this. The brainstem says, okay, guys, slack off, have a relaxation, break time. And so now what happens is, it stops sending the signal and all the muscles relax. Now, which is the most important muscle of respiration? Diaphragm. Which has given the most movement? The diaphragm. So the diaphragm which had gone down now comes up by elastic recoil. You see, it had contracted with effort. Now it is a passive coming back to the normal. It's not doing anything else. It was stretched, it was contracted, sorry. It has now come back. It is just coming back to its normal. The intercostals had pulled the rib cage out. They are all coming back to normal, elastic recoil. The accessory muscles had pulled upwards, coming back to normal. So the diaphragm's coming back to normal, rib cage coming back to normal through the intercostals, accessory coming back to normal, and by elastic recoil, now what is happening? The cavity, the volume is coming down. When volume comes down, pressure goes up, and now the air is pushed out. So diaphragm going down, the rib cage expanding, accessory pulling up, volume goes up, pressure comes down, air comes in. Inspiration. Puraka. Now, just let go. And what happens? Diaphragm coming up, intercostals coming back, and accessory relaxing. The volume comes down, pressure goes up, air goes out. Expiration, Rechaka. So if you look at this whole process of inspiration, expiration, it is primarily driven by the muscular contraction and relaxation in three different parts. Diaphragm, intercostals, accessory. The diaphragmatic movement is what we are working on when we are working on what we call Adam Pranayama. Enhancing the awareness of the movement at the base of your lungs. Madhyam Pranayama is creating awareness of the intercostals, the middle part of your lungs, Madhyam Pranayama. And the upper part where you are starting to understand all of this coming from the accessory muscles, Adhyam Pranayama. So Adam Pranayama, Madhyam Pranayama, Adhyam Pranayama to create awareness of the diaphragmatic movements and the changes happening because of it. Madhyam Pranayama creating an awareness about the intercostal movements and the changes. And the Adhyam Pranayama to understand the accessory muscles movement and the changes there. And then it all comes together. Where does it all start? The movement of the diaphragm. Adam. Where is it supplemented? Madhyam. And where is it enhanced? Adhyam. So Adam, Madhyam, Adhyam. Now when the elastic recoil occurs, which is the most important muscle? The diaphragm. So again, Adam, Madhyam, Adhyam. So the expansion is also Adam, Madhyam, Adhyam. And the coming back, the elastic recoil is also Adam, Madhyam, Adhyam. Hence, when we do Vibhaga Pranayama, we are breathing in low, mid, high, breathing out low, mid, high. Now, it doesn't mean the air is going low, mid, high. What it means is that the most important aspect of pranayama is the awareness of the prana can be developed in this. The awareness of the prana can be developed through such a focus. Yato mana tata prana. So when we focus in this, we are enhancing the awareness of the pranic flow in harmony with the normal physiological function. And when this occurs, Apu, when this occurs, what happens is, as all of this is happening and mindfully you are breathing more deeply, slow, deep, mindful breathing, the inner aspect of the lung is also expanding. The inner lobes of the lungs are also expanding. There is an inner low, inner middle and inner upper. And these have antara mudras to go with it. That is why it is not just 9, it's actually 12 when you go into the advanced versions of this. The internal aspect of your lungs is actually massaging your heart. When you breathe in, it's not just the lungs going out. Everybody they think breathing is only in the front. No, it is 360. When you breathe in, it is into the front, into the side, into the back. And when you do that, internally also the lungs are expanding. The lungs are expanding internally. And what is inside there? The heart. And so the heart is getting a beautiful massage. Each time you breathe in and breathe out, what you are doing is massaging the heart. And this is why when you breathe in and out slow and deep, You are enhancing the cardiac autonomic function. The Mayer's rhythms, that are the rhythms that are connecting the interconnectivity between the respiration and the heart. There's a beautiful interaction that is between the breathing and the heart. That is why the heart is not on its own. We talk of cardiovascular physiology and respiratory physiology. No, it has to be cardio-respiratory physiology because the functions go together. When you change the way you breathe, you change the way your heart functions. And this is why slow deep breathing in the Vibhaga, breathing and focusing the mind on the lower part, becoming aware of the diaphragmatic movement, being aware of the intercostal movements in the Madhyam, being aware of the accessory movements in the Adhyam. And as you breathe out, being aware of the diaphragmatic movement in the Adham, being aware of the intercostal movements in the Madhyam, being aware of the accessory muscles and their movements and the changes in the Adhyam. You are becoming aware and mindful of this process. You are enhancing your mindful experiential awareness of the flow of prana happening through this process, which is where we go back. Pranasya ayama pranayama. The enhancement of our experiential awareness of the prana using the respiratory mechanisms. That is what is being enhanced here. And you are moving from survival mode to living mode. Survival mode is what everybody is caught in. When you do this mindfully, you are starting to understand yourself better. You outgrow the survival instincts of abhinivesha klesha and you start to grow beyond it. This is where the quantum leap occurs. And that is why through pranayama, we become fit. Our mind becomes fit for concentration, dharana, and all the internal aspects of the Antaranga Yoga. So this is why when we are breathing, it is low, mid, and upper. When we breathe out, low, mid, and upper. It is not about where the air particle is going. It is where your mind is going, where the awareness of the process is going, and how you are becoming one with that process and growing through that. You know what is very important here is that the moment you say this, people then say, yes, but Dr. Ananda, when we do the Vibhaga, we breathe in front, side, and back. So then why don't we also breathe out front, side, back? See, because here they have got into the head now. See, this is where unconscious, unmindful learning. The teacher said it, so I do it. Low, mid, high. So front side, back, front side, back. No. There is a difference there. Why there is a difference? See, your rib cage is attached in the back to your spine. So you have your spine and your ribs are attached to the vertebrae. And then the ribs come around like this. Okay? Some of the ribs come and they are joined to what here your sternum. So they are called the real true ribs. And then if they are not, they are attached to the cartilages, they are called false ribs. So you have the true ribs, false ribs, and then you have those which are not attached, the non-attached independents, which are called the floating ribs. True ribs are attached to all the ribs are attached to the vertebrae, all 12 pairs, 12 on the right, 12 on the left. All are attached to the vertebrae in the back. But only the top ones are the true ribs. Then you have the last two are the floating, 11 and 12. And 9, 10 are attached through costal cartilage. They have an attachment which is not really to the sternum but cartilage attachment. So they are called false ribs. Okay? So true ribs, false ribs, and floating ribs. But all of them are connected to the back. So remember, so it's like if all are connected here, this is what your rib cage is like. Okay? Imagine these are the vertebrae, these are the ribs connected here. Okay? This is how it is. So when you breathe in, what expands first? What expands first? The front. What expands next? The side. What expands last? The back. You understand what is happening? Because this cannot change. This is permanent. But this is changing. So this is how your rib cage is. Breathing in, expanding the front, expanding the side, expanding the back. Now when you breathe out, what is going to first be worked on? The back, because it's coming back. This cannot change. The attachment to the vertebrae cannot change. So what happens? The back, the side, and then finally the front. Front, side, back, back, side, front. Front, side, back, back, side, front. And this is why in Vibhaga, we are performing low, mid, high, in, low, mid, high, out. But when we do the front side back, it is front side back, back side front for the low, front side back, back side front for the mid, front side back, back side front for the upper. I hope you have understood the difference here, because it's very easy to get confused, and so many students, oh, that teacher says, this teacher says. No. Understand what they are saying. Try to understand the logic behind it. Try to understand the logic. Be aware of it. And then follow one. Don't try to mix. The moment you mix your practices, you are going to be in trouble. Because it has to be mindful. Things have to flow together. Which practice flows with which? And the question from Gurlin. Children can start this as early as possible. Vibhaga Pranayama can be started as early as possible. See, kids are breathing anyway, right? Why not teach them how to breathe properly? Why not teach them to be mindful of the breathing? We start at the age of 5 at Yoganjali Natyalayam. The reason 5, well, one is kids are toilet trained. The second aspect is they don't need to be with the parents. So you can keep the parents out of the class. Never let your parents come into kids' class. They'll mess everything up. Because for every parent, their kid is the superstar. And in Tamil we say, Kakaikum tan kunju pon kunju. Even the crow thinks its baby is the most beautiful baby. This is a major issue that is there. Keep the parents out. So when the kids are 5, you can keep the parents out of the class. The kids will not miss the parents too much, and they are toilet trained by then. Start young. Let the kids learn to be aware of this beautiful process of the breathing. Because when you're mindful of your breathing, what is happening is that automatically what is happening is the energy awareness grows. And yes, Susan, definitely I will tell you, this type of practice will reduce anxiety. Because if you look at the pattern of anxiety, it's all thoracic breathing. It's all, and many of them, they're just gasping for air. You look at people in anxiety, they're gasping for air. They are not utilizing this at all. So when you help people focus on the process, low, mid, high, low, mid, high, front, side, back, back, side, front. What you are doing is you are settling the person. You are grounding the person. Why are people anxious? Because they have lost the grounding. They are ungrounded. Even electrical connections need a grounding wire. We need to be grounded. And slow deep breathing in the Vibhaga pattern is one of the best grounding techniques that can be there. This is why the first whole month, one whole month of 6 months training at the ashram, all the students work on every day is the Vibhaga. Learning the Adama, learning the Madhyama, learning the Adhyama, learning the Hatenas, the practices, the asanas, kriyas and mudras that enable this type of awareness to be enhanced. Going through practices to enhance the low, mid and upper parts. And then how to bring them all together in the Mahat Yoga Pranayama. The Mahat Yoga Pranayama, the grand integrative breathing practice. What a beautiful aspect. What a beautiful aspect that we are developing through this. And yes, Terry, it is a beautiful spiral. It's a beautiful spiral of energy that we are working on. That the spiraling of energy has to be there. And the spiraling has to be constantly moving upwards. The energy has to be constantly spiraling upwards. And people talk about the energy going up and down, up and down. When you are talking of work with energy, it should be moving in a process from down to up. This process of going for the base, What is the base? The base is Adama. How do you then build on it? The Madhyama. And how do you keep it going higher and brighter? Adhyama. Again, the lower part is working on the lower part of the body, the middle part of the body, the upper part of the body. And again, it is working on the Stula Sharira, the Sukshma Sharira, and the Karana Sharira, Linga Sharira. Stula Sharira, the gross body, the gross embodiment. Sukshma Sharira, the subtle embodiment. And Karana Sharira, the causal embodiment. When we are doing this practice, we are attuning to the gross, the subtle, and the causal. And that is why when we do this, it builds into what is called the Pranava Pranayama, where you breathe in thinking ah, thinking oo, thinking and then when you breathe out, you are uttering the sound ah, where again it is natural low, mid, high. Imagine if you did low, mid, high and then you had to go oo, ah. It doesn't work that way. Definitely, I would say, Ivan, Vibhaga Pranayama is one of the best ways to restore normalcy to lung functions. It is always the restoration of lung function. And we have seen amazing work with COPD using these practices. We have seen amazing work with diabetic lung. So many young children with childhood asthma have outgrown the childhood asthma using these practices. Low, mid, high, front, side, back. So the front, side, back of the low, front, side, back of the mid, front, side, back of the upper. And breathing out, back, side, front, low, back, side, front, mid, back, side, front, upper. This is the sequence in which you want to enhance your capacity. And the more you start to focus on this, the more you become mindful of this. Because most people, the only time the mind thinks about breathing is when they cannot breathe properly. It is only when people have issues with the lung function that they become aware. Only when they cannot breathe do they realize, oh my God, I need to breathe. Let us try to become aware of breathing even before that. That is where yoga is preventive medicine. Heyam dukkha managatam. Let us prevent that suffering that has yet to come. And yes, Pooja, definitely all the respiratory issues, the Vibhaga Pranayama, the Hatenas, the Pranava Pranayama, these are a godsend. And we have used them over the last so many decades. So many people have benefited because of it. So definitely yes, and these are safe. People always ask, is it safe? These are practices that are safe. It is cost effective. Safe, cost effective, and the person can do it themselves. You are empowering the individual. You are creating self-help. They are helping themselves. They don't have to depend on somebody else. And for God's sake, you don't need any props for this, okay? People are creating instruments which will cost you a lot of money to help you breathe like this. Just use your brain, okay? See, if you don't use it, you are going to lose it. That which you don't use, you are going to lose. Please, please, please use your mind, use your brain, and keep working on that power of choice. I think we'll stop here today. Thank you for being with me today. It means a lot to have all of you there on the other side of the phone, the computer, or whatever device you are using. The pandemic has taught us that we may not be having person-to-person contact, but we can still be in the same place at the same time for the same purpose. And whether you are in America and still in the past, whether you are in New Zealand and already into the future, or whether you are in India and in the present, we are all in the same place at the same time. Let us keep working on this. Do your best and leave the rest. Be a blessing wherever you are and be blessed. Hari Om Tat Sat. Namaste.